Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nick and Sanjee podcast, where we go through our tips and tricks on how to start a YouTube channel as we ourselves go on that journey. How are you today, Nick?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm planning a trip, so I'm a little bit tired. I was up late last night booking some stuff, but feeling good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm excited to hear about your trip eventually.
Yep.
And it's exciting to hear. We're actually, those of you who don't know, Nick is in Melbourne and I'm in Perth these days. So there's
Mm,
actually a 3 hour delay between the two of us.
mm.
So luckily, I have been practicing getting up early because I'm still working Melbourne time too. So it's just ticked over 7:40 today in the AM, but that's exciting.
Yeah,
So Nick, today we are speaking. First of all, we've hit episode 15. There we go.
yeah,
Congratulations. I think
yes.
any episode,
Congratulations.
yeah.
Like in the
These
top
days we're just
5% or something now, right? So,
yeah. We keep going. We'll be like the top 0.1% of
yep,
YouTubers and podcasters.
yep.
So, episode 15, finding your niche, unearthing your unique voice in a crowded space, which is such an important thing when you become a content creator.
Mm,
It's probably something that you don't think about until down the track a bit. What
mm,
do you think,
mm.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely something that's still developing to this day. I think I'm still figuring out my niche, but yeah, there's a lot of
Mm,
value, I think, in finding out your specific area of interest or
yeah.
expertise. So yeah.
Yep. Awesome. So we are going to run through a few things today, but we thought we'd start with our stories. So in terms of what we started on, how we've gone on a journey in terms of specific to our niches, where we've settled, and maybe a little bit about where we're going into in the future. So Nick, why don't you kick us off with your YouTube or your niche story?
Yeah. So for me, it's been been a pretty long and interesting journey of trying to figure out what my niche is. And like I said, I'm still developing, I'm still working on it, but it's a lot clearer to me now than it was when I first started, like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. So when I first started, it was like I pretty much just did anything that I was interested in. So I had no specific niche. So I did like videos about finance, investing, motivation, Kindles, tech, camera gear, like all sorts of stuff. Just anything that I was interested in, I just would make a video about it. And looking back, I'm actually glad I did that because I think it helped me to experiment and just get a feel for YouTube and whether it was something that I was really interested in. Um, but the downside is I didn't grow much in the first 6 to 12 months. And then from there, I think I decided I really liked 3 topics, which was reading, finance, and tech. So I kind of narrowed down a little bit, or chose these 3 categories, which are essentially 3 different niches. And doing that helped me to understand which ones I liked better. So from that, I realized I think of those 3, I enjoyed the tech stuff, the tech videos the most. So then I further narrowed down. This was probably maybe 2 years into my YouTube journey, narrowed down just on the tech topic. And then I had subcategories of my tech. So I did like creative tech, productive tech, reading, finance, and health. So again, still super broad. At least I'd picked a topic, but I still hadn't really niched down. And that's how it's been for, probably for the last year or so. But this year, especially in the last like 3 months, I've really tried to narrow it down even further. So at this point, I'm trying to focus on just helping people who are just getting started with content creation. So,
Mm,
helping people to improve their production quality, help them get set up with gear, camera equipment, the basics of editing, all that type of stuff. So it's a lot more specific. And I've kind of been resisting like niching down this much for a while because I thought, if I box myself in, I'm not going to enjoy it as much. It's going to be more difficult to come up with information or ideas, whatever. But so far, I've actually really been enjoying being more specific. And we can get into some of the benefits that I found later, but a few just off the top of my head is that it's actually a lot easier to come up with video ideas when it's more specific. I find it easier to deliver content because I feel like I'm talking to like a specific person rather than trying to talk to a million people at once.
yep.
I found it easier to come up with product ideas because it's more specific. And then I feel a lot more relaxed about view counts, actually. Like I used to get quite stressed if I didn't get a lot of views, but now because I'm trying to target a more niche group of people, I'm less concerned about getting like 1 million views on a video. I'm more concerned about, am I actually helping those people I'm trying to target? So yeah, that's been my journey. I'm still, like I said, clarifying where I'm going, but it's been good. How about you, Sanjay?
Yeah, that's good. Mine has been similar in terms of the early days. So I started off my YouTube career in cooking videos. So I was talking about, I think I pitched it as these are videos for people who are in their late 20s, early 30s who have never cooked in their life. And let's go on this journey as this guy who himself is going to learn how to cook shares what he knows about it. So it was going to be partly, comedic because it's like, oh my goodness, how can he not know how to cook? Look at all the basic stuff he's learning. But then also it's meant to be educational so that other people also learn about it. I was very linear in the video. Like I was very much like, this is literally how you learn to cook and this is how you make this meal from start to finish. And in retrospect, like looking back, I realized that's not how cooking videos are actually done. Like cooking videos are actually done in a much simpler way. Like I'd make like a 10-minute video on how to cook something, but when you actually watch how cooking videos are done, and as I now learn how to cook something, I realize you only need a 3-minute video because you don't need to see each step literally being done. So I thought that was quite interesting to learn now. But I started in cooking. And then the reason I got away from cooking was because I actually hated cooking. And it's hard to build a YouTube channel on something you don't like doing. And then also cooking is actually quite hard because you need to cook the thing you're about to cook on camera about 2 or 3 times first, because you first need to know what you're doing. Because I didn't even know what I was doing. Then you need to figure out how to do it in a simple way that you can record, and also in a way where you can add a bit of comedic elements. And then, because comedy is good when you know what's going to happen, but the audience doesn't, and you know how it's going to be funny. So you have to almost set it up in the process. So I'd have to do all that, and then I'd sort of cook a meal about 3 times, and the third time would be when I would actually record it. I'd have to have cameras set up and all of that. I had like a full-on setup. I think I had 2 or 3 cameras that I would use. It was like a full-on production, and I wouldn't recommend that's how you get into YouTubing. But I then pivoted away from that into personal finance, which is actually an area that I'm interested in. A bit easier to make videos, but you do need to consider like your storytelling element, because cooking's quite simple and everyone knows why you're watching it. But personal finance, you need to have a bit more storytelling in it. So I did that for a bit, and then now I'm sort of sitting at the edge of doing personal finance and then maybe looking into other niches, because I myself am not as interested in personal finance videos. So that's where I'm at. I think the next couple of videos that I'll do will be personal finance related, so I'm not too worried about that, but they'll shift away from that. But I agree with you in terms of once you do know a niche, it is so much easier to create videos for it, to think about who that ideal person is. And also you're absolutely less stressed about if you're getting the broad engagement, because there is going to be a particular group of people who are going to get a lot of value out of this, but it may not be everyone on the internet. So it's always finding that balance.
It's actually really, really interesting to hear that you even had like a target audience in mind with your cooking videos. Like that's very different to me, because again, I haven't really had a target audience in mind until probably the last year of my content creation. So I'm really curious to hear like how you actually found that niche, like how you picked it in the first place and how you thought about targeting it, and then how you switched and picked the next niche. And then how you're thinking about picking your next niche, like if you're moving through these 3 different ones, how you're approaching it, because I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who are trying to decide what niche to get into. They might have different interests, as you definitely do, as I do. So how have you decided on one?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think each time the niche is it's really just a subcategory of your interests. Because I think this is something Gary Vee has sometimes talked about is like when it comes to the conversation about your niche, you really are your own niche.
Mm,
So you kind of already know what you're interested in. So for example, with the cooking videos, the niche of people learning to cook who are in their late 20s, early 30s, starting from the absolute basics with a comedic element, that is me. That is actually me because that's exactly the situation I was in. And I just thought, I will now make videos for people like me because
right.
that's probably the best position that you can be in to talk about uh, content creation. And you can position yourself to be like, if I was learning to cook, because I think in the early days when I would watch cooking videos or cooking shows, I'd see they would be incredibly fast.
Mm,
And they are a little bit boring because it is cooking. Because often, if you are going to the internet to watch a cooking video, you just want to get the information. That's all you want.
mm,
So I thought if I can make a video where I literally go into, okay, you need to cut stuff like this in this way, and here's each literal step, and let me show it. And then add in the element of, because it is my first time doing it, you're going to see stuff that's all over the shop.
mm.
Things are going to look half done. I
Right.
remember some of the comments that I would get from people, like, for example, a comment I would get from someone, what I did, like a favorite meal of mine, which is Maggie noodles. I think they said, this is great. What's the next video? How to boil water. So, it's the kind of stuff you'd get. And you'd have to be open to that kind of commentary because
Savage.
that's the kind of audience you're attracting. So that's as basic as I was making the video. It was like, I'm really going to take you from not knowing anything to
Yep.
actually being able to cook. That was going to be my journey because that's where I was. So,
Right, right.
and I knew if you show people to some extent your journey, that's quite funny because it will look a bit awkward and weird. Then transitioning to personal finance and investing, that was, I think, and I'm not sure, Nick, if this has been the case for you. So I would be making cooking videos, but I was consuming a lot of Peter McKinnon, Maddie, I've forgotten his name, the Casey
Oh, yep,
Neistat,
yep,
all those kind
yep.
of guys, Graham Stephan. So I was consuming all those guys' videos, but I
Mm,
was making videos on a completely different topic.
mm,
And this has actually often been the case for me is I don't watch videos in my own niche because I
right,
think I'm going to be in some way impacted by it. So I don't want to do that. I make my own videos in my own niche, but I don't watch it.
right.
But I remember I was watching a lot of Graham Stephan videos and thinking, man, you know, these videos are actually much easier to make. I
Yeah,
remember, I think that's what it came down to. I was like, it's actually quite hard to make a cooking video. There's a lot of effort and it costs a
yeah,
lot of money because you have to buy your ingredients, like I mentioned before, like 2 or 3 times. So I thought I can make videos on personal finance. I'm actually interested in personal finance. And
mm,
also, I do think, if I'm completely honest, Graham Stephan did point out in one of his videos around how to start on YouTube, his training course, he
mm,
did say the two most lucrative areas on YouTube were personal finance and beauty products. So I
mm.
thought, okay, well, I can make those videos. I'm interested in those videos and they make money.
Yep,
Let me make some content on that. And I
yep.
think at the time as well, and I've recently learned this is not necessarily that good an indicator, but at the time there weren't a lot of people in the Australian space doing videos on personal
Mm,
finance.
right.
So there was Aussie Aussie Wealth, Aussie Money Creation. I've forgotten his original name,
Mm,
but New Money guy.
yep, yep, yep.
He had quite a few videos on that space, but outside of that, there wasn't a lot of content. Now
Mm,
it's quite a saturated space, but
mm, mm,
yeah, so that's how I got to my current one. Now, looking into the future, my view has been I like personal finance, and I think a lot of the content out there. It's also quite it's all a tricky area. You can't make too many videos giving too much actual advice because then you go into a different space,
mm,
which is legally tricky.
right.
Um, I think a lot of stuff in personal finance is about budgeting, which I'm not that
Mhm,
interested in, if I'm completely honest. Like, I think people who think personal finance start and stop at budgeting have kind of missed it. It's about budgeting and then investing, but then also
mm,
there's a whole piece around making more money.
Yep.
So if you can, and if you're in a position, you should look to see if there's ways that you can make more money as well. So that's sort of the next niche that I'm thinking about myself is, okay, I don't want to talk more about budgeting. I want to talk a bit more about how you make more money. But then also, I see some of these new areas like artificial intelligence, cryptocurrencies, which I know are sensitive areas. And I'm just trying to think, how do I position a video set around that issue? Like, what problem would I be solving in that space if I were to? So that's where I'm at. In all honesty, I don't know exactly what it will look like.
Yep.
To some extent, I'll probably need to do a couple of test videos just to see, do I enjoy making videos in this space? Do I find it as a useful niche? It'll very much be, because I think personal finance worked well because I could see how popular it was in the US, and I just kind of added an Australian element, and it worked well. Like, it grew me quite quickly. But I also know personal finance in Australia will not grow you to stratospheric heights.
Right.
Even new money, I think last time I checked, I don't think he was far from it, but he still hadn't hit 1 million subscribers. And that makes sense because you are very, I don't think he's Australian focused now, I'll be honest, but he, historically had been Australian focused. And to some extent, you do have to do a lot of sensationalized news items around it. When it comes to personal finance, if you don't want to give advice and you don't want to talk about specific products, you do just end up becoming a news channel. And so for you, Nick, what about your journey around niches, current state, future state? How do you see all that developing?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things I found interesting that you talked about in relation to me as well. I think, like you said, cooking stuff you weren't as passionate about. So I think for me, I've really just tried to figure out what I've been most passionate about in terms of creating content on, because I think that's helped me with sustainability. So, for example, I think when I was doing reading videos or Kindle videos, like some of my Kindle videos are still to this day my most popular content, but I'm just not that passionate about Kindles. I like my Kindles, but I'm not passionate about them. So I think that's been one thing that has helped me to narrow down my focus in terms of what my niche is. And you shared a really good, like a chart. I think you got it from Ellie Abdul. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where it sort of talks about the different sections. So if there's no demand, but you're passionate, it's kind of pointless because, you can be passionate, but it's not going to be sustainable. If there's no demand and there's no passion, then it's kind of just a waste because what are you doing? If there is demand, but you're not passionate, then it's going to be boring for you and it's not sustainable. And that's kind of what you talked about with the cooking, is that you weren't really enjoying it. It was kind of boring for you, even though there might have been a bit of demand. It's just not going to be sustainable. That's what I found, again, with probably finance to a degree. I wasn't passionate enough about the finance stuff. And then reading, again, not passionate enough about it. Like, I really enjoy reading, but I'm not passionate enough to be able to talk about it for weeks and months on end. But the ideal spot in this chart is demand and passion. So if there's lots of demand out there for the thing you're talking about and you're actually passionate about it, then that's a great place for you to be in. And so I think that's how I've arrived at tech. Like, there's plenty of demand for tech stuff. And I'm quite passionate about tech. Like, I really enjoy tech, talking about it, learning about it. And then that's continued to narrow down into, I really have enjoyed helping people just get started with, setting up their content. People who've asked me, who've learned about my channel, they're like, oh, I've been really curious to start my own channel. Like, what advice can you give me? And I've really enjoyed just sharing that. And it's also ties in with tech, because I'm still talking about camera gear, which I really enjoy, or any other tech gear that you can use for content creation. So, and the other big thing I think is like ease of being able to create the content. So I think you mentioned part of the reason you switched to finance is because you realized the videos were easier to make.
Yeah.
And that's been a big factor for me as well, especially this year, like trying to make a video every single week plus shorts. Like I've really tried to think about what's the most efficient way to do things. And I've found like in-depth tech reviews of specific products are probably the most time consuming for me. Whereas doing like a tutorial or tips and tricks video is much more simple and straightforward. And so moving forward, I think I'm gonna focus more on that because again, I've said to a few people, like if you're just getting started with content creation, I think the most important thing is to make it as frictionless and streamlined as you possibly can make it. Like I don't think it's as common these days, but when I started, a big thing that people wanted to get into was vlogging. They wanted to do like a daily vlog because they were quite popular at the time. And it looks pretty easy, right? It's like, oh, you just got to take a camera around with you and film yourself. But it's like the amount of editing involved in a vlog is massive.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's why I decided I'm never going to do a vlog because it's just too time consuming. It's way too much effort. And that's just going to hold me back from actually getting started, building a habit of creating videos and then growing from there. So yeah, for me, I think streamlining the process is just a really big factor for me in terms of which niche I want to do as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the daily vlog era, I think I missed it a bit. Like it kind of came and went, and I don't think either I wasn't in the YouTube space or I was sort of in and out. But I'm really disappointed I kind of missed the Casey Neistat daily vlog era because I think he just did like everything you hear about it is he just did an amazing job of it. He must have really refined his art around it. He, and he's also a guy living in New York, which is so kind of, to a lot of people, I'll be honest, maybe not everyone, but certainly to me, it's just a very cool thing. And he's also a great storyteller. Like, so you had this person who knew how to make great videos, step into the YouTube world, and then ramp up production in a yearly process. And also the time in his life was also a very unique time, I think. He had just had his child and he was sort of working, or I think it was actually his second child, but he was sort of working through life with that. And he was just doing a daily vlog and he committed to it and he kept going. I think he went a little bit over a year. But yeah, the amount of effort that would have taken out of him, and he's like a tier 1 professional out of it all. It was crazy.
Yeah. I remember watching some of his like day in the life, and he would be up till like 2 a.m. editing every day, and then he'd wake up at like 5 a.m. Like he'd get hardly any sleep. I don't know how he did it for a year. Like it's crazy.
But yeah, and I think like Peter McKinnon, Maddie, I need to really, because I haven't watched a lot of their videos recently. And it's interesting because I think that's what happens is you sort of go in and out of, as a viewer, you go in and out of seasons yourself. I've watched a lot of Graham Stephan. I'm watching a lot of institutional videos these days, which is, may not be great, but I'm watching a lot of like Formula One videos. I'm watching videos of people just having talks. So, like conference talks, conference presentations, interviews, that kind of thing. As you were sort of talking about this, I was thinking about some stuff that's come up on my Instagram feed a lot because I've been interested in, other ways to make money. So drop shipping, digital products, all of that. And these people who create content where they say, this is how you figure out the next big thing, or this is how you can copy someone else's product idea. So they'll be like, here's someone who currently makes $1 million a month selling fitness gear, so athletic wear. And they'll say, this is how I figured it out, and this is the product that they use, this is the supply that they use, and this is how you can build like a store that does exactly the same thing and create it. And I'm just like, whoa, like that's insane. But also I'm thinking that's to some extent what it would help if we also knew in YouTube around, what are people watching, what are people interested in, what's the growth region. But the challenge with that though is it's not evergreen content. It's just content that will work for maybe a couple of days, maybe a week, maybe just a small season.
Right.
But you can't really be sustainable with that.
Right.
So I think it's a balance, like finding a niche that is made up of actual people that want to be in that space all the time,
Mm.
um, is a little bit more sustainable. Because, like you touched on, the other thing that everyone learns very quickly in the YouTube world is how do you become sustainable?
Yeah.
How do you keep turning up to create content? Because that's that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. Totally.
So, okay, so we've touched a bit on our stories, we've touched a bit on how we found our niches. Let's touch a bit on how to develop a bit further once we find a niche.
I think kind of going back to one of the things we talked about earlier, which is having a clear target audience, I think is a thing that really helps to develop, I think, once you've sort of picked a topic. And that's what I'm trying to do myself at the moment, I think. So I've picked the general niche, which is kind of tech/content creation. And then from there, I think the thing that's going to help me the most is to continue to refine my target audience. Because the clearer I understand who I'm trying to reach with my content, I think the better it's going to come across, because it's going to be more specific. It's going to be better value, hopefully, because it'll be helping a specific person. And then even like you were just talking about in terms of these other people who have really successful products and that type of thing. I think having a specific target audience will really help you develop products for a particular person who has a specific need. And then I think that then in turn gives you sustainability, because if you're creating more evergreen content around a specific target person, target audience, then it becomes more sustainable, rather than just trying to go with a trend, which
Yep.
isn't necessarily a niche. Like, you could have trends within niches, but it's not a niche or specific target audience. So I think for me, that's what I'm finding at the moment, is just developing my target audience. What's your experience been with that?
Yeah, so once I sort of knew the niche generally, to develop it further, there is a bit that I think I picked this up from some of Ali's content, where he said you you need to really sit down and think about this individual, like really, draw a picture about this
Mm,
individual, write a piece of paper around them, and go into detail about them. So, what's their age? What's their gender potentially? Where are they living? Even what's their income? And you're really trying to
mm,
hone in on the key attributes of that person and what they want to get out of watching your content,
mm.
or what they want
Yeah.
to get out of your products. So, for me, it was people who are kind of just realize that they're interested in personal finance because they've sort of realized just saving money is not great. I
Right.
need to actually invest and invest in the share market. And
Right.
as I've gone on the journey of investing in the share market, these are all the issues that come up. So first of all, what is investing? Is it a scam? Is it dodgy? That's sort of your first block of questions. Then it's around, how do I actually buy shares? And then it's around, okay, now I've bought shares, how do I manage my shareholding? How do I manage my dividends? How do I set up all these various things? Now, how do I monitor the market? All that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So that was a lot of the things. Then another thing that I think it wasn't actually Ali, but it was in a coaching call I had with someone I met through Ali's program. We shout out Ali a lot. I just realized, Nick, we need to almost get like a sponsorship deal with him.
Yeah.
Um, but if people don't know Ali Abdal, that's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
You should be able to Google him very easily.
Yeah.
Um, this person suggested you could do coaching calls. So they're just simple free coaching calls, 15 minutes. Very easy to set them up through Calendly. You just have a link, someone clicks on it, bang, bang, bang. It's basically a funnel. And it's a great way to sort of chat to someone and find out what are the kind of questions that you have around this niche. So they get value because they get to talk to you and they have some initial questions that they want to ask. But then as they're talking to you and they're asking the questions, you're sort of realizing, oh, these are also topics that I can make videos on
Mm,
around this topic.
right.
So, if they've got a question, then, sometimes it can be a very niche question. So this wasn't a question I had on someone on a call, but someone emailed me. They said, how does investing in shares work when it also aligns, or how does investing in shares work when you also have to pay child support payments?
Right.
So I think this person was essentially asking, I'm investing, and if I make money, how does that gain that
Right.
I've made impact how much I have to pay in terms of child support payments?
Right.
So,
Right.
I already don't, I don't know because
Yeah.
I'm not a financial advisor and I'm also not in the child support payment sort of industry niche. I'm not an accountant. I don't understand those concepts, but I can see where this person's coming from because they're like, I'm getting into shares, but I'm now making money. I've got this sub question in that's actually very niche. So so that's the kind of stuff that you sort of eyes can open up to when you start to engage with people and they start to send through your questions or you have those
Mhm.
sessions.
Yep.
And that in itself can help you develop further and further
Mm.
into a niche. So
Mm.
that's been what sort of served me well so far.
Right.
Whether how it will serve me as I go into a new niche or if I go into a new space, I'm not as sure.
Right. Interesting. Can I just ask as well, just on going back to you talking about like a target avatar or target audience and how you approach that? How soon in your YouTube journey had you started to think about that? Because I feel like that's something that you've always been really good at, is like having a really engaged audience. Where I've definitely struggled with that. So I assume that's probably one of the big reasons why you've had a quite engaged audience in comparison to me, because you've had a clear target. So yeah, curious to hear about that.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's necessarily something that I thought about immediately. So it's often sort of thinking, okay, I'm going to start talking about shares and investing. But as I go through that, and this is often something we've talked about as well, like people are like, oh, I just don't know, I'm not very good at coming up with video ideas. And I always say, just come up with 3 or 5 initial ones. I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee from there, stuff will come out.
Mm.
And so there's a couple of things. I think, first of all, I always think about, okay, when I went through this journey, what kind of questions did I have?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is hard to make videos about something that you yourself are still in the early stages of. So you do have to have sort of spent a bit of time in that space, and then you're looking back now making videos on it, which is why
Mm.
I think cooking for me was a bit of a tricky area because I
Mm.
myself was going in the early stages of it. Like I was maybe 10 minutes ahead of someone else that was watching my video.
Yep.
I had just learned something that I was now talking about in the video. Whereas
Yep.
investing, I was a bit further ahead in.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's one thing. And then the second thing is the comment section always helps, that people will always sort of ask a question here or there, and then you can leverage that, or people will email you with a question or Instagram you with a question.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've just been reasonably good at sitting down and thinking, if I was to go on this journey on this thread, which I think you can also do with your new niche, is around, if I go on this journey, all the different questions that will come up along the
Mm.
way,
Yep.
what would they be and how do I build a video for it? And as
Yep.
you build a video, you realize the video that you'll build will be a bit too broad, and then you can then build a sub video underneath it to then go
Mm.
into even more detail of that other
Right.
topic.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably how I approach it.
That's really helpful. Because I think I've kind of thought that I've done that to a degree, but again, because I didn't have a specific person in mind, creating a sub video still was way too broad. So I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but because I didn't already have one specific type of person in mind, like I might have made a video about um, Kindles. That's a classic example for me. I was just making a Kindle about Kindles. So, anybody who's roughly interested in Kindles can kind of watch the video and maybe get something. But then to make a subcategory of videos, like I did some about how to organize your Kindle library. Like again, it's very broad. There's not a really specific type of person who's looking for that. And as a result, I think that's contributed to me getting subscribers who aren't uh, they're not in one specific area of life, I guess, if that makes sense. And so when I make another video that maybe is about content creation, like my Kindle
Mm,
subscribers just aren't interested because they're not in that specific area of life. Whereas for you, like the majority of your subscribers, I'd say, would be in a very similar category, a similar depth demographic. And so when you publish a video, they're much more likely to watch it much more likely to engage with it, which is something that I've struggled with. So that's really interesting. It's definitely making me want to make sure I continue to think about that and incorporate that in my future videos, because then I think I'll attract the right type of subscribers, and then that will result in more successful content. So yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse though, Nick, as I think it through, like it it's good because it gives you that consistent audience, but then if you do want to sort of shift your niche, you then have to figure out how many of these people will go on with me
Right.
into this new
Yep.
niche
Yep.
and how many will kind of drop off.
Yep.
So and that's probably partly been like I've already got a pipeline of videos and I know they're all still personal finance related. And it's not really connecting back to some of my other niches or some of my other niche ideas, because I just know that shift will be quite dramatic and it'll put a lot of people off.
Right.
So it's figuring out, because there's so much around, once you create a new video in a new category, once someone subscribes, you have to remember the algorithm will then pump out all the old videos as well.
Yeah.
So this is the problem I had with my cooking stuff, which was okay because I think it didn't last long.
Yep.
But people would subscribe to a personal finance video, and then they'd have this back catalog of cooking videos being thrown up in their face with the same guy, and they'd be like, "What's this?" Like, so it's a bit of
Did you take those videos down? I'm curious.
I think I did. Yeah, after a while, I did have to. I think I unlisted them just because I knew the branding of the channel was now personal finance, and it kind of hurts having the cooking stuff. But I think at the same time, I didn't have enough of a back catalog. Like if I had kind of let the videos stay there and pumped out enough personal finance videos, I think the algorithm would have just kind of pushed those into the back, because they weren't very popular videos. They weren't very good videos anyway.
Yeah.
So they weren't getting that much engagement.
Yeah.
But they did sit there a bit, and they could have taken away from it. So now I'm thinking, if I do stuff in new niches, having videos on ComSec, all of that, how does that impact people? Because this is something Gary Vee's often talked about, is around like people often make videos or they start a new niche and then they want to change the niche suddenly. When they really should be doubling down on it. And I'm like, but I don't want to double down on personal finance, it's not necessarily something that I want to do, but
which sorry. Which I guess for me is something maybe that I'm grateful for in terms of keeping it broad at the start, because it's helped me to slowly focus down rather than picking one and then deciding to do something different. Because I'm hoping I feel more, like I'm keen to do this for an extended period of time now. But I have been thinking about starting to unlist some of my other videos, because again, they're very different content, and they're still, some of them are still attracting subscribers. And I'm wondering if maybe that's not helpful, because they're not going to contribute to any views in the future with my newer content. So maybe I should start considering unlisting some of my older stuff. But
it's an interesting one, because I know in the early days when we both started on YouTube, like any subscriber was great, any watch time was great, and now we've started to become picky. And we're like, do we want to attract the wrong type? Because you also don't want to put off someone. Like you don't want someone to, like I was pretty particular. I'm probably not as much, but I need to get into it. But I'm pretty particular with who I subscribe to on YouTube, and I will do the not interested kind of click if I see a video that I'm not interested in on my feed. I'll say, no, get that out of, like, I want the algorithm to adjust to where I'm at in life. So and I in the same way, I don't want someone to subscribe to my channel thinking they're going to get a certain type of video. I mean, yes, you can look at the back catalog, it's there, but the next set of videos may not be in that same way. And I've not seen, like, if we think about Ali Abdaal, he's just done really well in just finding a broad enough category that he can just put 5-6 years into, and he can probably put another 5-6 years into easily. Graham Stephan to some extent similar, Peter McKinnon, Maddie, all those guys similar. Casey's probably the one guy who's never really had a niche. It's just this is Casey, and still he's just great at making videos. So
Yeah. And I think some people, their niche is their personality. People watch it for the entertainment of seeing that individual versus around a particular topic. And I think for me, I don't have an interesting enough personality like someone like Casey Neistat compared to someone like Casey Neistat. So it makes more sense for me to pick a topic rather than trying to make it about my, my personality. So yeah.
Yeah, I think none of us can compete with Casey, let's be honest. But also, like, what you've just touched on there is quite important, though, because we've just talked about the YouTube space, and Casey, easily kills it on the YouTube space, as does Mr. Beast as well. Actually, we should mention him naturally. The issue, though, is if you want to build stuff outside of YouTube and you want to use your YouTube channel as a way to kind of bring people into your ecosystem of products, then it's actually good to be niched and very specific because, and maybe we can do some episodes on this in the future. Like, that's sort of your funnel. You bring people in through YouTube and then you can get them into different products, and you're still always adding value into their lives with your various products. Which, if you're jumping between niches, which is what I'm doing here and there, it is tricky. So I think there's no perfect way to do niches. And if you're, we all should have started YouTube when we were 19. That's probably the better way to have done this all. But we didn't. So we're here now and we're figuring it out along the way. But to some extent, the internet can be forgiving, and, you can kind of remove stuff as in, like, you can never delete anything really, but you can remove your old videos to some extent. You can create your new niche, but yeah, it just takes time.
Totally.
On it all. So, any final thoughts before we close up on that, Nick?
No, I think it's just I found this really enjoyable to talk about, especially because, like I said, I'm really trying to niche down like recently, and I think it's really motivating me to keep doing it. And even hearing your side of the story, and I'm keen to keep doing it, keep moving forward.
Yeah, there's a big thing in here which is around, which I think it sort of happened to both of us at certain points, which is, we like YouTube, we're going to keep doing this. And it just, the sooner you can get to that conclusion, the better it is, because then it kind of shifts the way you think about YouTube. It shifts the way you think about how to use it as a platform in your journey of how to do content creation. And it just, it helps out a lot. So, all right, well, where can people find out more about you, Nick, on the internet?
I'm just on YouTube, Nick Kendall, and then my website, nickkendall.com.au, and you can sign up for my newsletter on there. That's pretty much the best places to find me. How about you?
Fantastic. Yeah, sanjeesen.com website and Sanjee Sen on the YouTube channel. And I do have a presence in a few other places, but that's more so just to manage against scam artists going against me. So I've got some blue tick accounts on X, formerly known as Twitter. And I actually saw a video of Elon Musk where he referred to X as Twitter. And everyone and it was like, it's been a significant amount of time since he bought it and he renamed it. So everyone was laughing, and even he was laughing. He's like, yeah, I still get it wrong. And Instagram is too as well. I've got the blue tick there. So
nice.
Thanks everyone for watching and listening. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.
Bye for now.